read the verse again. As the sense objects, form, taste, touch, smell, and sound, cannot understand how the senses perceive them, so the conditioned soul, although residing in his body along with the supersoul, cannot understand how the supreme spiritual person, the master of the material creation, directs his senses. Let me offer my respectful obeisances unto that supreme person who is the supreme controller. Okay, so someone is self-realized, they can understand. Someone's a conditioned soul, they can't understand. Hare Krishna. Prabhupada's commentary. The individual soul and the supreme soul live together within the body. This is confirmed in the Upanishads by the analogy that two friendly birds live in one tree. One bird eating the fruit of the tree, and the other simply witnessing and directing. Although the individual living being, who is compared to the bird that is eating, is sitting with his friend, the Supreme Soul, the individual living being cannot see him. Actually, the Supersoul is directing the workings of his senses in the enjoyment of sense objects. But as those sense objects cannot see the senses, the conditioned soul cannot see the directing soul. The conditioned soul has desires. The Supreme Soul fulfills them. But the conditioned soul is unable to see the Supreme Soul. Thus, Prajapati Daksha offers his obeisances unto the Supreme Soul, the Super Soul, even though unable to see him. Another example given is that, although ordinary citizens work under the direction of the government, they cannot understand how they're being governed or what the government is. Oh, that's really true, especially today. Oh my goodness. In this regard, Madhvacharya quotes the following verse from Skanda Purāṇa. As the various servants in the different departments of big establishments cannot see the supreme managing director under whom they are working, the conditioned souls cannot see the supreme friend sitting within their bodies. Let us therefore offer our respectful obeisances unto the Supreme, who is invisible to our material eyes. That was from the Skanda Purāṇa. So in a big establishment, it's a very intricate organization. A lot of different departments and many different people involved and serving in different ways. And it makes the whole thing work. They are able to, as a giant organization, produce products or services, all working together and each one having their own little area. But above it all, there is the head of it all, either the president or the CEO or who's in charge of the whole thing. And under him are the sub-directors, and under them are the district managers, and then there's the departmental managers, and it moves down like that. So the comparison here is made that Krishna within the heart is sitting there directing all the activities of the living entity, who maybe could be seen as what's being referred to here as an establishment, a complete whole. And the individual living entity can't see this Supreme Director. Who's directing everything, actually. Directing according to the desires of the living entity. living entity wants to engage in material activity, then the whole thing goes in that direction. If a living entity wants to serve Krishna, hears about Krishna, then goes in that direction. If they want to engage in material activity, they need material facilities. So that's provided: material body, material mind. You want to engage in the material energy, in forgetfulness of Krishna. If you want to engage in Krishna's service, then you get a different type of facility. You get a spiritual body with spiritual facilities. It's according to the desire. Well, anyway, Daksha's offering these prayers. And text 25. Because they're only matter, the body, the life airs, the external and internal senses, the 5 gross elements, and the subtle sense objects. Oh, that's great. Thank you. There are gross sense objects, and there are subtle sense objects. Yes, that helps with the previous verse, because that list is here again. The subtle sense objects: form, taste, smell, sound, and touch. Those are the subtle sense objects. The gross sense objects are the fire, the water, the air, the actual actual sounds, and the sense organs are the gross. Okay, the gross sense objects are the actual sense organs. Well, those are the actual gross senses. And the subtle sense objects are the form, taste, smell, sound, and touch. All right, that helps. But there's more. So in the previous verse, in the Daksha's prayer, he's repeating from the Vedas, his Hamsaguhya prayers, that just as the senses themselves cannot perceive how they're being directed by the subtle senses. Yeah, okay, that makes so much sense. Yes, that makes sense. The gross senses, it's thinking, feeling, and willing. Looking at what happens on this, he's describing here what happens on the subtle plane. The subtle sense objects when they're subject to material desires. And these subtle sense objects, they're on the mental plane: form, taste, smell, sound, and touch. In their subtle form, are directing the activities of the gross forms, the gross sense organs to engage with their objects. It's coming first from the subtle plane. And then he compares that to how the living entity can't perceive how the supersoul is directing him, the living entity. We should say her, because everyone's female compared to Krishna, but whatever. So the activities on the gross plane first come from the subtle plane, and the gross sense activities really can't perceive how they're being directed from the subtle platform. For a conditioned soul, for a self-realized soul, liberated soul, they can. They have access to what's going on on the subtle plane, and they can direct it. They're not directed by, but they are directing, and they can also perceive the supersoul. So this is describing the condition of the conditioned soul. They don't have this perception. They don't know how it's working. They can't control their mind or their senses. And they have no realization of supersoul within the heart of all living beings. So this prayer is illuminating the situation. And Daksha has taken shelter of these prayers. He's offering them to Krishna. Okay, let's start the translation again. Oh, thank you. Hare Krishna. It's so much fun reading this. See, it's the message of Godhead, and it's presented in different ways by different persons as they are on their path. It's the same conclusion. It's presented from so many living entities, because everyone's unique. Everyone has a unique relationship with Krishna. It's unlimited. That's why the Lord's pastimes are unlimited. His glorification is unlimited, because everyone's unique, although the conclusion is always Krishna. So wonderful. Maybe there's no end to it. And it just ever increases. So, lose taste for anything else. Why waste time? So sweet. So, okay, back to the translation. Let's start again. Because they are only matter, the body, the life airs, the external and internal senses, the 5 gross elements, and the subtle sense objects, form, taste, smell, sound, and touch, cannot know their own nature, the nature of the other senses, or the nature of their controllers. But the living being, because of his spiritual nature, can know his body, the life airs, the senses, the elements, and the sense objects, and he can also know the 3 qualities that form their roots. Nevertheless, although the living being is completely aware of them, he is unable to see the Supreme Being, who is omniscient and unlimited. I therefore offer my respectful obeisances unto him. Okay, so this, now we're going from the conditioned soul, who can't perceive it at all, to talking about someone in the liberated position. So the liberated person says, although the living being is completely aware of them, a liberated soul is completely aware, he's unable to see the Supreme Being. Supreme Being is beyond even liberation. Daksha continues, I therefore offer my respectful obeisances unto him. So I have to see where this, I'll bet it goes to devotional service. Mention anything. Prabhupada's commentary. Material scientists can make an analytical study of the physical elements, the body, the senses, sense objects, even the air that controls the vital force. But they still cannot understand that above all these is the real spirit soul. In other words, the living entity, because of his being a spirit soul, can understand all the material objects, or, when self-realized, he can understand the Paramatma upon whom the yogis meditate. Nevertheless, the living being, even if advanced, cannot understand the Supreme Being, personality of Godhead, for he is Ananta, unlimited in all 6 opulences. Whoa. So this is gone now even past liberation, past Brahma Jyoti and personal realization, Now even those that have reached Supersoul, the great yogis who meditate upon Supersoul within the heart, even a person at that level cannot understand the Supreme Being, the personality of Godhead, who is unlimited in six opulences. That's Prabhupada's purport commentary. We go on to text 26. So this is Daksha continuing. When one's consciousness is completely purified of the contamination of material existence, gross and subtle, without being agitated in the working and dreaming states, and when the mind is not dissolved as in Sushupti, deep sleep, one comes to the platform of trance. Then one's material vision and the memories of the mind, which manifest names and forms, are vanquished. Only in such a trance is the Supreme Personality of Godhead revealed. Let us offer our respectful obeisances unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is seen in that uncontaminated, transcendental state. This is the samadhi. This is the trance state, where it's described so nicely here. The material vision and the memories of the mind, which are holding these names and forms, finished, gone. Which doesn't mean the mind isn't doing anything. The mind is fixed on Krishna. So the mind is too busy to spend time going through all these past images, because the mind is fixed in the eternal present in connection with the eternal supreme living reality of Krishna. And all these other things, it's like looking at an old photo album with the edges crumbling on the pictures, and half the time can't even remember who the picture was of. Where was that? Who was that? So the mind has no time for that, because the mind is absorbed totally in the transcendental position in the moment, the eternal moment. There's no past, there's no future, there's the eternal present. That's where Krishna is. He's in the eternal present. So, what was that? This saying is found in a lot of different cultures. I believe it was Bhakti Vinod who spoke it in this way. Think not of the past, it sleeps. And the future has not yet come to be, but be with times that are with thee, and progress ye shall call. Hare Krishna. He also talks about this trance state, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, some of his writings. He says this is necessary. So it's a trance of pure trance. By engaging in devotional service, one can be in that trance state. They don't have to be sitting doing nothing, staring off into outer space to be in a trance. They can be fully engaged in devotional service. That's also the trance state, because there's no room for these other material visions and material memories. There's no room for them. The mind is filled with devotional service to Krishna. That is the trance state, trance of devotional service. So, Jai Shri Krishna Sankirtan, Haribol, Jai Srila Prabhupada's ISKCON, International Society for Trance State in Krishna Consciousness. Hare Krishna. Prabhupada's commentary. There are two stages of God realization. One is called Shunyayam, or very easily understood, generally by mental speculation. And the other is called Durgnayam, understood only with difficulty. Paramatma realization and Brahman realization are considered Sudgnayam, which means easily understood. But realization of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is Durgnayam, difficult to understand. As described here, one attains the ultimate realization of the personality of Godhead when one gives up the activities of the mind, thinking, feeling, and willing. Or in other words, when mental speculation stops. This transcendental realization is above Sushupti, deep sleep. In our gross conditional stage, we perceive things through material experience and remembrance, and in the subtle stage, we perceive the world in dreams. The process of vision also involves remembrance and also exists in a subtle form. Above gross experience and dreams is Sushupti, deep sleep. When one comes to the completely spiritual platform, transcendental deep sleep, he attains trance, Vishuddha Sattva, a Vasudeva Sattva, in which the personality of Godhead is revealed. So, who says this is not science? This is the greatest science there is, science of transcendence, how the mind works. Very interesting. Hare Krishna. So when one gives up the activities of the mind, thinking, feeling, and willing, now those are the activities of the mind that are connected to material desires. Thinking about something and then developing a desire for it, and then thinking about it and then developing some attachment for it, and then wanting to do it, then going ahead and do it. I said that's mental speculation because I'm thinking this will make me happy. I'm guessing, I don't know. I think it will, based on sense gratification. I think it'll make me happy. So I'm thinking about it. The mind is working like that. You want to be happy? Well, let's think about this, whatever it is. And yeah, I think that will make me happy, develop some attachment, and then go ahead and engage. Try to fulfill that desire. It starts with mental speculation. I'm thinking that it will make me happy. I'm thinking it's the right thing to do, based on material desire. So when that stops, thinking what will make me happy based on material sense gratification, based on this body, in the gross conditional stage, we perceive things through material experience and remembrance. And then also, we perceive through dreams. This mental speculation is still going on in dreams also. Dreaming about this, dreaming about that. The mind is accustomed to this speculating. The mind wants to, the mind's meant to be a facility, to be a servant. Just how the mind engages is whether it is being engaged properly or whether it's not being engaged properly. So, so above gross experience and dreams is Sushupti, deep sleep. When one comes to the completely spiritual platform, transcending deep sleep, he attains trance. So there's the gross platform, busy doing this, doing that, and the subtle platform, thinking about this, thinking about that. And then there's sleep, deep sleep, where the mind is really shut down. There is evidently a stage like that where there isn't any activity. It's deep sleep. The mind is not active. It doesn't mean the mind is purified. It just means it's not doing anything. It's deep sleep. Evidently. As Prabhupada says, above gross experience and dreams is Sushupti, deep sleep. So if there's no dreams, there's nothing going on. But when one comes to the spiritual platform, he attains trance, which is even beyond deep sleep. So what on earth is going on there? The mind is not engaged in material activities. The mind is engaged on the spiritual platform. There's no mental speculation about what will make me happy. The mind is engaged in serving Krishna. And there's no guesswork, because Krishna is saying what will make him happy. So there's no more guessing. And when Krishna is happy, then we're happy. Because we're part of Krishna. We're not going to be happy separate from Krishna. We've already tried that, and it does not work, as we can see. We're part of Krishna. We're expanded from Krishna. So when Krishna is happy, then we're happy, because we're part of Krishna. And what is it? You put the food in the stomach, then the whole body benefits. Oh, very good, nice. I say, I'm tired of putting the food in the stomach. That stomach just sits there and eats the food all day. I'm going to enjoy this food with my hand. Doesn't work. It's not the way everything is organized. So, continuing on with the purport. Atak Shri Krishna Namadi Nabhavid Grayam Indriyai. As long as one is situated in duality, on the central platform, gross or subtle, realization of the original personality of Godhead is impossible. And it's just been explained why. Sevan mukhe hi jivadav swayam eva sparatyata. But when one engages his senses in the service of the Lord, specifically when one engages the tongue in chanting Hare Krishna, Maha Mantra, and tasting only Krishna Prasadam with a spirit of service, Supreme Personality of Godhead is revealed. This is indicated in this verse by the word Suchi Sadmane. Suchi means purified. By the spirit of rendering service with one's senses, one's entire existence becomes Suchi Sadma, the platform of uncontaminated purity. Bhakti Yoga, real renunciation. We want to renounce the material world. Whatever we have, we use in the service of the Lord. That's real renunciation. The real yogi is the one who does just sit and do nothing, lights no fire, performs no work, The actual yogi is the one who uses everything in devotional service. And then the senses become purified. In other ages, performing these very expensive and costly sacrifices was the recommended procedure for pleasing the Supreme Personality of Godhead. At those times, the ingredients for these costly sacrifices, the gold, the silver, the fine pearls and jewels and gems and costly cloth and materials and all the different things that were needed, all the ghee that was needed for these sacrifices were present and available on the planet. And if they weren't used to offer and sacrifice to Krishna, then the people it could be inclined toward just sense gratification. So they were used to made as offerings. In this age, those things are just not available. So to try to do sacrifice with huge amounts of gold, and you can't even get the ghee. So, the butter, and they're not available. So we use what we have available, which is all the different contraptions and technologies, the internet, the automobiles, all the contraptions, gadgets and gizmos, the cell phones, the iPod. We use it all to communicate about Krishna, to glorify Krishna. Because the yajna for this age is the chanting of the Lord's holy names and the glorifying of his pastimes and activities and the spreading of his message is all part of the Sankirtan. So we become purified like that. And we can engage all our senses in facilitating the Sankirtan. Temple worship is facilitating the Sankirtan. Wonderful festivals, beautiful deities are there. It's all to facilitate the chanting of the holy names. That's all there is, Bhaktivinoda Thakur says. All there is in all the three worlds is the holy name. Hare Krishna. All right. So, specifically when one engages the tongue in chanting the Hare Krishna mantra and tasting only Krishna prasadam with a spirit of service, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is revealed. Is indicated by the verse by the word Suchi Sadmane. Suchi means purified. By the spirit of rendering service with one's senses, one's entire existence becomes Suchi Sadma, the platform of uncontaminated purity. Daksha therefore offers his respectful obeisances unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is revealed on the platform of Suchi Sadma. In this regard, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur quotes the following prayer by Lord Brahma from the Srimad Bhagavatam 10.14.6. Quote, "One whose heart has become completely purified, my Lord, can understand the transcendental qualities of your Lordship and can understand the greatness of your activities." End quote. So how is that purification done? We just heard. By engaging the senses in devotional service, especially the tongue. Tasting Krishna prasadam, chanting Hare Krishna, tasting Krishna prasadam.